Hi there, everybody. My name is Kate, and welcome to my channel, Fire Horse Academy. I'm glad you're here joining me. Thank you. So I wanted to tell you about something that a metaphysical understanding that dropped in today that came through a beautiful illustration, and I wanted to share that with you because it talks about the relationships we have with other people sometimes whenever they become a bit heavy and burdensome, and we don't really understand what's happening. So this goes back to a dog that I had years ago now, and he was a small dog, a little Shih Tzu. And at the end of his time, when it was time to start saying goodbye to him, he was going through a process of shutdown that was taking him into dehydration and some kidney issues, etc. And so the extent of his life was going to be impacted greatly by being able to intervene in ways that he could still have a quality of life. And it was kind of a test to see how long that quality of life would last with that kind of intervention for him. So this isn't meant to be something that would, extend his life for another 3 years. It was something that would be a test to see, is this even something that he would need every once in a while? Or is this something that this guy would need, pretty routinely? We're going to need to know that that's a decision-making choice point where we're going to want to know all the facts on this and exactly what's happening and how this impacts everything, around him and everyone who cares for him and loves him, etc. So whenever I got that metaphysical understanding today is that when we are that for someone else, when we are the hydration, for someone else. Did I say that? He would get a hydration bubble. I think I did. If I didn't, my goodness, I'm already on to the next part and may have completely skipped one step. My apologies. So the hydration pack is what he needed because he was so dehydrated, and they actually had to, place liquid, saline under his skin in a bubble that he wore. No, I didn't explain any of this. My apologies. He wore like his own personal camelback that was a part of him, literally, integrated into his skin, that they just put in a few hundred cc's or whatever the animal needed, depending on the size of the animal. It's a good way for hydration to make it in, nourishment, energy, to make it into a body that for some reason the intake is being bothered somehow. It's being interfered with, whether it's, a terminal end of life thing, or there's, literally something clogging up the, the eat and drink hole, who knows? However, the pathology and the process of it, energetically as well as biologically, happens the same. It has to reach a choice point then. And so when we meet that choice point, when we meet it with grace and we meet it with style and we meet it with understanding what we're looking at, are we looking at this as a long-term implementation that we're going to expect to use maybe a few times a year? Are we looking at this to be the successful intervention that's going to continually every day until I can't stand for him to, the thought of him going away, lessons 333, enough for me to be able to say goodbye and let him go away? Or am I expecting this to, just keep going until I can, be forced to make some other decision? And those are quite dramatic and hysterical when we wait and put things off that really need that keen, soft, gentle eye that is ruthless in decision making, that understands the balance of this is something that's meant to be an intervention, not a long-term support. We don't do CPR on people forever. There's no way that, a whole team of providers with a machine, that would be a lot to try to keep that pace going of keeping someone alive. It's very intense. I have a lot of experience in my EMS days of understanding that, and it's intense also in the energetic spaces as well. It's equally as intense, if not more. Anything you see happening here on earth, it was built somewhere else, baby. And so being able to understand that part of up here brings down here, then we can better understand, what am I really truly battling here? What am I truly looking at? Is this a fear of something that's been made here and needs to be dealt with here, and I ain't interested in going here? Or is this a realistic part of my process of understanding how I use resources, how I responsibly use the stewardship of technology, modern medicine, and energy science too, all together, to use very prudently and judiciously, and ruthlessly cutting off anything that's going to waste that precious resource and that value. Because the life of my animal, for me, it was hard. It was a terrible decision. However, in EMS, we make that decision all the time. Got to call the code. We don't have the resources for this, and it's headed nowhere that's going to last more than 5 minutes. Once this goes unsupported, you cannot sustain that level of life, drama and stuff to keep someone alive, physically or energetically. And if you do manage to get all that wrapped up and bagged up into, a long-term solution that's artificially managed, that does not have a lot of interactive capability, and it becomes literally the sense of burden, and I mean that very gently, the sense of weight and heaviness that hydration pack is now, drowning me. That whole idea of that is now suffocating me, because, I really didn't know when to let go of my need for that. And now, I'm smothering under the weight of that, and it's a lot to carry. And I do not mean that in a terrible way in terms of, my particular situation. I did use hydration packs for my guy as he was leaving his experience here on the earth plane. I did use those very much. He got several towards the end of his life, whenever I was just, in a space where, as much as my right mind knew how to use resources, that also knew that the resource wasn't there to actually, pay for him to be brought to a different space with himself, as quickly as I would have liked to. He had to go 2 days of, hydration pack until I could wait for a payday, which is one of those ruthless decisions that had to be made because I didn't have any say in that. However, energetically in that space, what I was knowing and understanding is, I can help you. The reason that this isn't happening for me to be able to have a better quality of life with you is because there's other stuff that's happening. And right now, girl, go ahead and make the decision. Hydrate me until he gets payday, and there's a better way for me to serve you right now, other places, than to be here drawing and being that heavy sack of burden upon you, that emotional water weight on you, that you really, this isn't going to serve you. For me to stay another couple of days, it's a terminal event. We all know this. It's just you weren't expecting it to speed up, and we sped up because this is needing to get taken care of in a very different way than you were perhaps thinking. And I need to be in an energy space where the density of my 3D and all the BS that's happening around you and me, I'm not gonna really be able to do all that from here. So that was a hydration pack that moved itself into a very different relationship, where I still have hydration, conversation, except now that hydration pack comes back the other way to me, because his animal intelligence is very valuable, and the relationship we had, 818, was incredibly nourishing. It was, got me through some pretty awful, bitter, lonely days of, some separation and some abandonment and some trauma, and going through all the revisitation of every horrible dream I ever had. He was my guy, and it looked like, oh no, 838, my strongest supporter, is now leaving at a time when this looks like it's going to get even worse, and it did. However, knowing the energetic side of it could not allow me to be angry about the fact, for very long, about the fact that I was gonna have to wait 2 days on a payday before I could responsibly handle the life of a being that I care very much for. And that just really was gassing me weird. And no, you gotta let that go. And part of 909, letting it go, is gonna also to know that I'm over here, and I can help you better, bro, if I'm over here. So it's gonna help you to know that keep your sights over here, because this over here is filled with all kinds of, stuff that's filled with fear, and that's not where your best attention is going to be served, because grieving my loss is where you're really going to need to put your attention either way. Then let's go ahead and put it over here with something more to nourish and munch on than that over there, because that's an empty bag of promises never fulfilled. That's a full bag of that and an empty bag of promises living around in the swirl of all of that, delusion and stuff. So let's be over here, actually doing stuff that's worthy, and it's paying attention over here and knowing when to make those very, ruthless, ready decisions of this looks like, wow, both the ruthless decision of having backed myself into a corner with other people so hard that I was, really financially in a major pinch. Never do that again. Start paying attention on that. Cool. And, also the ruthless decision of nope, once Monday comes, it was a Friday, and we got a hydration bubble till Monday, which was the payday. And I reached out everywhere that I knew, to get the vet to be able to come, before 2 days. And the ruthless decision Monday was I planned Friday how Monday was going to go, so I knew exactly what was going to happen. There was no mystery in that. And all weekend long, keep your eye off of the bitter boots of how this is happening, and know that I'm liberated and free from the pain and the weight, of all that, icky misery stuff. And I am better over here. So please keep your focus over here. It's going to make that transition so much better for both of us. And yeah, I still grieve still for him even to this day. And it's been, probably 8 years, 9 years. It's been a while. It's been a few. And I still grieve sometimes when I think of his cute, goofy, would have never guessed, what kind of a Wolverine in spirit he might be, 1122. But that is what he is energetically to me. What he was to me as a dog is still, a memory that is, faint now in terms of how he was. Sort of like remembering the difference of, your child as a baby versus a grown adult. I do remember those days fondly. Do I absolutely remember them like, I remember you now as I see you 11:44 every day and, converse, etc. It's like that. So anyway, at 11:44, I think that's a perfect time to close the door. And let it just be said that when we're relying on other people to be our hydration bubble, or we're relying on something else to be a source of hydration for us, that is external to us, or we have to reach it externally, or ask permission, or need collaboration with somebody else or something else that is a lower density, that's not a higher dimensional being of some kind, we're likely to run into some, conversations that might get polluted, clouded, and distorted some. And so, it is just best to make ruthless decisions where they have to be ruthless, as in sharp and discerning, and seem quite, careless. Not just careless decisions that, ruthless decisions that are careless, or careless decisions that are ruthless. No, ruthless decisions that are very carefully, executed for very strategic reasons that are for the benefit of the greater good of all players. And meeting right here at, home plate is the very first place to start with that, and then work our way out. And then we know whether or not we can really, can I afford to hydrate somebody else? Am I going to let them, use me, as that portal and that entry? Do I wish to be hydrated by somebody else? Do I want that? Do I want to have any exchange where I owe, fluids and liquids somewhere of life-saving hydration? And that's energy, baby. And it's a good time to be not hoarding of it, highly selective of where we're extending it. That's just all there is to it, 1331. So careful how we're forming bubbles, hydration bubbles, and, giving the long-term solution on, a short-term, immediate terminal problem that's got about, 3 more seconds to live. You can do that if you like. However, those last few, as it moves out, will probably be unpleasant for all of you. I haven't found that to really work. That CPR eventually, this all ends eventually. It might take it, all kinds of a long time, however, super painful and lagging for everybody during that long time, and it closes itself out. 1414 is a 5-5, because that's the cycle of death and birth, life, rebirth, etc. It is the cycle. of life. So anyway, take care of yourselves and enjoy your day no matter what part of the day you're in. And remember to get within your skin because you're divine. It's absolutely gorgeous, you hydration beauty, you. And doing just fine. You can hydrate you all the time. You got hydration packs all day from Spirit, your team, and anything else that you know is supporting you in that way and really lifting you up to be the best version of you, whether you're working from, astral spaces nobody knows anything about, or you're working out here. Either way, working to support the best version of you, because sometimes that's going to look very different based on what it is that you need to do for you. And all that zhuzh in there, baby, it already knows what to do. Go on ahead and let it wow you, and me too. Thank you very much, and I'll see you next time. Mwah. Bye.